Howdy boys and girls. So if you're tuned in for this video, you're either just a normal subscriber and you just like to keep up to date on what I'm doing, or you've searched this particular subject and you're kind of curious on how to do it. So I'm going to try to make it kind of a how-to, or at least how I'm personally doing it. I'm not a professional or anything, so don't take my word for it. This is just what I'm going to do, what I'm going to try, and I'm going to see if this works. Speaking of people that are subscribers, I feel really lame doing this, but yeah, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I was looking at my analytics, and like some 70 to 80% of my views come from people that aren't subscribed to my channel. I'm not trying to get like famous or anything. I really don't care. I just kind of do this as a hobby, but more so for you, if you enjoy the content and you want to kind of stay up to date on things, just go ahead and subscribe, and I guess click the bell or whatever if you want to be notified whenever I upload stuff. Yeah, that was painful. So in this video, I'll be installing a Speedi sleeve, or repair sleeve, shaft repair sleeve. They go by different names depending on the manufacturer. The particular one I'm installing is a SKF Speedi sleeve. So, sorry about the cicadas. You know, it's Florida in the middle of the night, so rained all day, so they're real active. I'll try and keep the mic tuned away from them. So anyways, reasons why you need to install a Speedi sleeve. Usually it's because you've developed some type of leak, and that's usually because of a damaged shaft of some kind. In my case, it's my transmission input shaft. I just got done doing a transmission swap. Did a Toyota E153 swap into a Mazda BG chassis car, particularly a Ford Escort, because I kept blowing up the Mazda transmission. So, anyways, that's beside the point. Anyways, I was about to head to the track. Well, not actively heading to the track, but I was preparing to head out to the track, you know, getting the car ready, and I noticed a small leak up under the car. Turned out it was transmission fluid. Didn't think much of it. Thought, it's probably just a small leak, no big deal. And it turned into a slipping clutch. So stuck a little bore scope into the transmission. Turned out it was the input shaft that was leaking. You could see it leaking down the splines and all over the throw-out bearing, and of course that goes right into the clutch disc and right onto the flywheel and pressure plate, and that causes a slipping clutch. Probably wouldn't notice it as much. Well, I didn't notice it for like just driving around. It was only when I got into boost that it was slipping. Got really high in the RPMs, and it would just free rev basically. So yeah, went ahead, pulled transmission apart, and discovered this. So yeah, you get in here. Alright, so first things first, this is the input shaft out of the transmission, with all the gears and bearings and stuff still attached. No need to pull all that stuff off. If you're seeing this and scared, you probably should be. This is not a easy thing to do. You have to pull the entire transmission off the vehicle, obviously, and then in my case you have to pull the transmission apart. On your vehicle or your application, you may be installing one of these sleeves on something other than a transmission input shaft. It could be an engine main seal or a cam seal, or some industrial piece of equipment, or anything. The process is mostly the same, other than how you get to the piece you need to install the sleeve onto. So like I said, in my case, input shaft, this is where this section here is where the seal rides. This is the side that was inside the transmission. This part is nice and clean still. There's a slight groove. You can kind of see where the seal was possibly riding. It's either where the seal was riding, or it's where the seal was, sealing, where there was still oil, and there was no oil on this side, and this is why this got corroded and nasty and disgusting. Like I said, it's from a 92 MR2, so good chance this thing's been sitting for a while somewhere, or was sitting for a while. The sad thing is, I had pulled this thing apart before, I pulled the entire transmission apart just to go through it and install a limited slip differential, and I didn't catch this. I didn't see this. This looked a lot worse too. This was like rust. I ended up taking a wire wheel to it to clean it off. But yeah, somehow I missed this when I pulled the transmission apart the first time. I replaced every seal in the transmission but this one, And the only reason why I did that was because in order to get to this one, I had to pull a $90 bearing out and replace it. And the bearing seemed fine. I was like, and the seal seemed fine. So I was like, I'm not going to replace it now. It seems fine. It wasn't fine. Well, the seal was probably fine, but that shaft was definitely horribly corroded, and I just didn't catch it. So, like I said, if you are doing this yourself, transmission has to be pulled out of the vehicle and has to be completely disassembled. If you happen to be doing this on an E153, this is obviously where the input shaft lives. So this is the seal that came out. The seal rests down in there, and then the bearing is pressed into there. So in order to get that bearing out, you're going to need a slide hammer, and you can pop that bearing out. You're going to destroy that bearing getting it out. And so you need to get a new bearing. Like I said, the bearing's about, well, I think I paid about 45 bucks. Paid about 45 bucks for the bearing and about 30 bucks for the seal. I couldn't find the seal by itself. I had to buy the seal in a complete kit. So like I said, this is the old seal. You can see some of the crud still on there. This recess in here was completely corroded and nasty, and I had to take a brass brush and some solvent and stuff in there and clean that out, because this has to be clean and flat and smooth in order for the new seal to seal. So yeah, but like I said, this isn't going to be very vehicle specific because, you know, it's just not. So Speedi seal or seal repair, or like I said, a few companies make these things. You're gonna need a install tool, which is completely worthless for this, and the seal itself. So this is the Speedi seal. So the way this works is just a very thin wall piece of pipe with a flange on it, and you don't need to source an oversized seal. This is thin enough that you don't need to get a new seal. You can use the same, not the same seal, the same type of seal. You don't need a bigger seal. So basically the way this goes is this just gets slid over and tapped down into place. And voila, that's it. So before you put this on, this obviously needs to be clean and free of any solvent and oil and stuff like that. So that needs to be clean, so you can just take a wire wheel. I took a steel wire wheel and just got all that crap off, and some brake cleaner, get all the stuff out of there. And in my case, like I said, the tool that I threw, trying to be funny, but now I don't know where it went. So in most cases, the tool that comes with this thing is going to be too small to actually use because it's only yay big and you've got this huge shaft here. So I will be using the aluminum jack handle from my Harbor Freight jack, and I'm pretty certain most of you car guys, you probably all have a aluminum blue Harbor Freight racing jack, because who doesn't have one of those? Even if you've got the most expensive tools in the world, I think everyone has a Harbor Freight jack in their garage. So yeah, this just happens to be the perfect size. Okay, well, not. Ooh, maybe it's not. I thought it would be. Well, fuck. Alright, so as I was saying, the tool that comes with the Speedi sleeve is not going to work, because obviously the shaft is too long. Normally you just put the sleeve in there, and then you tap the sleeve on. Not going to work, so I'll be using my modified Harbor Freight jack handle, nice and ported, you know. Luckily I just ported the intake, so I had a bunch of tools laying around in order to do this. So I just went ahead and clearance that out a little bit, so this fits in there loosely. So I'll be using this to hammer the sleeve on. So things to note: this particular sleeve for the E153 transmission is 99114. If that ever focuses. Why won't that focus? There we go. So that is the part number. This is the size 1.7 or 1.179 by to 1.184. That's the recommended shaft size. So yeah, that's the other thing when you're parting the, or when you're pricing the, or it's the other thing when you're sourcing these. You could either source them. Usually there's a part number listed for specific vehicles. Alternatively, you can just take a caliper and you can measure your shaft diameter and source a sleeve that way. This particular company, they recommend a thread locker or some type of sealant in order to secure this. So I bought some Loctite 640. This is specifically for sleeve fit or sleeve retainer compound. This will fill in very small fine cracks and will secure the sleeve in place. You can also put it on dry if you just have like a wear groove from where the seal used to ride, you know. But if you have any scratches long ways, or if yours is like mine where it's pitted and you've got these very deep gouges, they recommend not using this but using a metal powder epoxy. So I think this is what they're talking about. They don't specifically call out anything, but I mean, this is a metal powder epoxy, so I'm going to use this as my glue. This sleeve will probably never come off, but I should never have to replace it, hopefully. I'm going to have to be quick. Well, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this off. I want to make sure it's nice and dry because I don't want the epoxy to not cure right. You can see where mine has some very, there we go, some very severe pitting and nasty stuff in there. So yeah, we're gonna just go ahead and use the epoxy. Hope for the best. It's probably way more epoxy than I need. Some gloves on. Like I said, I'm not professional. I could be doing this wrong. If I am doing this wrong, please let me know. Please feel free to comment if you've done this before. I didn't find a lot of videos or really anything online about installing these things. I've seen people that, like, comments, people like, oh yeah, I've used them before, but and that was my next fear. So whether or not this was going to get stuck. So I may have just ruined this. Definitely just ruined it. Okay, so this is 3 days later. So what happened? What had happened was, where'd the piece go? So I was installing the sleeve, the little repair sleeve here. Why is that so dark? Alright, so yeah, I was installing the sleeve. And I was using this Harbor Freight jack handle. Well, this aluminum jack handle, doesn't matter, it's Harbor Freight, the joke's over now. So anyways, I was using this jack handle to install the sleeve, and at the time I had to, you know, machine that out ever so slightly in order to get this to fit inside of there. But I had it a little too snug, so snug that once I started to hammer the sleeve onto the shaft, it expanded and locked itself into the pipe. And of course, when it locked itself into the pipe, it scratched the sleeve. Well, me trying to get the pipe off scratched the sleeve, and then I had epoxy that was on there that was curing, so I couldn't figure anything else out other than to knock the sleeve off and clean the epoxy off before it dried, because this couldn't be used, and once it's on with epoxy, it's going to be hard to get it off. So failure on that part. So I went ahead, I machined the inside of this out even more, so it's a very loose fit. I mean, it's super loose in there now. And I ordered a new sleeve. Came in today. So let's try this again. Let this be a lesson to you. If you're doing this yourself. So yeah, if you're doing this yourself, and you're installing this, make sure the pipe you decide to use is large enough that it doesn't bind up on to the sleeve. Pretty dumb mistake, honestly. So yeah, that's got plenty of, don't have to worry about that. That's got plenty of give. One thing I am going to do, just to kind of help protect the sleeve a little bit, there's epoxy on there. Alright, so I'm going to wipe this down with some brake cleaner, make sure it's nice and dry. So like I said, alternatively, you don't have to use epoxy. You could use, there's a special Loctite that's meant for press fit deals, sleeve installation and other press fit applications. But that's only if your shaft, it's only if your shaft isn't too badly damaged. If your shaft is too damaged, then I don't know what to tell you. Nobody likes a damaged slat. Nobody likes a damaged shaft. Alright. Take 37. So yeah, just 2-part epoxy, pretty simple stuff to use. Pretty sure you've used it before. Either epoxy or JB Weld, it's all the same stuff. JB Weld is your standard 2-part epoxy. They've just done a really good job marketing it as something special. Well, that's just 2-part epoxy. This is Permatex steel weld. Like I said, they recommend a metal powder or powderized metal epoxy. Basically an epoxy that has metal in it. You gotta work fast because it starts to set up pretty quick. So it's probably overkill, honestly, because it's all going to squeeze out. You missed that. Apparently I didn't film it. Whoops, way up there. So anyways, that's hammered on. Meant to film the whole thing and missed it, but too bad I can't do it again. Alright, so now that that's on there, you need to, once again, work very quickly. You need to get the excess epoxy off. So there we go. That's the finished product. That's that new seal surface. That'll focus. There we go. Nice and repaired. Got a little bit of lint on there from the towel, but that should, this part here should not leak, hopefully. Pretty simple install when you don't screw it up the first time. Well, simple in the aspect of actually putting the sleeve on the shaft. As far as getting the shaft out of the transmission, it's a whole nother story. That's a, yeah. But, yeah, so there she is. One thing to note is that obviously you won't be able to get this bearing race off after you put that on, especially if it's epoxied on, so make sure that this race is in good condition. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time, but in this case, the race is in good condition. I'm just going to reuse it. I know I shouldn't, but it's a pain in the ass to get it off and a pain in the ass to press a new one on. Yeah, me saying things are a pain in the ass and not doing it is the reason why I'm doing this now, but anyways, yeah, that should be it. So, obviously your next step is to reassemble your transmission and go about your way. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and work on getting everything else back together, getting trans back together and back onto the engine, and that'll probably be a different video. But I just wanted to film this even though I missed the actual process of putting it on, because whoops. But anyways, till next time, guys.